think that fate is actually real and it's what runs our lives. And I used to not, but I started to last year. And what sent me down that track is very strange, and I don't even expect people to understand it. but I understand it, which is the only thing that matters, because these are my beliefs. And this was when I got a place. I've been actually. Let's go back. Because that was the final nail in the coffin, as they would say. But it really started a long time ago. Probably when I was a teenager, when I started to be influenced by this idea of working hard and needing to make something of myself. Even that phrase alone, make something of yourself, is so harmful and insidious to even think that way, because it's undefined and it's subjective. There's no real idea what that could be. So anybody could talk into your ear and tell you, well, you're not making anything of yourself, even though you feel like your life is fine. But then you start to look for a meaning. Well, what does that mean? What does it mean to be successful? That's another one of those phrases that's meaningless, but people use all the time. How can I be successful? How can I make something of myself? And then you kind of start to look at what that even means, what that entails. And usually the thing you stumble across on the internet and from the people around you is that you need to make a lot of money, and you need to get as rich as you can, buy a house, buy cars, buy boats, all that. And then I looked at my life and I saw that I wasn't really heading anywhere. So, I'm catching myself in the middle of still being influenced by that logic, by that way of thinking. Because I saw in my life that I wasn't on track to get to a place where I'd be able to have a lot of money and have cars and boats and houses and women. And I started to feel bad about it. And it sent me on a way to so-called self-improvement. As in working hard, going to college, trying to get a better job all the time, trying to make more money all the time. And when I wasn't very successful at these things, it made me very sad and melancholic, a little depressed. And that feeling that it created in me sent me to seek out advice from the people that I knew who were in my real life, who were more successful than I was. So-called successful when it comes to acquiring money, acquiring currency and assets. And those people had very different advice than I needed for my own personal life. Because the advice that people gave me, and I think this is pretty common with just about everybody that is in that position that I was in, where they're seeking advice from other people on how to live their life, is that these people, they can't give you advice on how to live your life because they don't live your life. They have their own fate. They have their own problems. Well, yeah, problems, but I don't mean to phrase it that way. They have their own experiences in life that shape the way they view the world. And they can't give you that advice. All they can do is think about, if they were in your situation, what would they do? And that's the advice that they give you, which is valid if you were them, but you're not them, you're you. So then when I tried to follow their advice, it always led me to stress, to anger, depression, failure, things not working out the way they worked out for those people. And that would lead to even more self-doubt, even more stress, even more sadness, which again leads you to seek out even more advice until that chain is broken. And I fear sometimes for some people that chain may never be broken. And I am grateful to God that that chain is broken in me. I no longer seek out advice, and I no longer seek out help when it comes to how I should live my life. Not to say that I don't take advice from people in specific, concrete circumstances, say how to fix a car, how to shoot a basketball or something, like just non-life related, but just skill-based things I'll seek out advice on. But life, nobody can tell you how to live. And I know that can send some people into a spiral, thinking that it's over because you can't figure it out. Which it was kind of doing to me until I had that epiphany that it's all fate. And you can't fight fate. I can't fight fate. And since then, I've been so relaxed. I don't try to force anything. If something doesn't come naturally, I don't force it. And back to the story, after the long weave, as Trump called it on Joe Rogan's podcast that I watched the other day, he said, I weave a story. And I like that because I do that as well. So the catalyst that culminated at the end of all this was I got into a lease last March, thinking that, okay, I need a long-term lease again because I've been car camping, feeling directionless again. So I need to get a long-term lease, lock it in, and that'll force me to get a job with my accounting degree and start living a normal life, because that's what my normie friends were telling me to do. Well, it didn't work out so well. The house was not good. As in, I didn't feel good about it because it was kind of cheap. And just being there depressed me because it was kind of a rundown place. So I backed out of the lease. The next day because, listen, I'm fine-tuned into my spiritual side, and I can tell when I'm being affected negatively that it's not going to get better unless I change my circumstances. And I've stayed in bad circumstances before, and it's only did damage. So I just cut my losses. And I ended up losing 2 months of rent and a deposit, which totaled out to about $2,300. And that sucked. It basically that money just vanished out of my bank account for nothing. And it kind of sent me into this existential spiral, because there I was thinking that getting this place was going to alleviate my existential dread by forcing me to become a normie. Yet it did the opposite. it sent me into the losing a bunch of money. It sent me into this even bigger self-doubting spiral that I can't even hold on to a house. I was thinking, now this isn't what I think anymore, but at the time, because it was so real and so intense of an experience, because not only the money was gone, but I was thinking it's over. I can't even do anything that a normal person can do, including a house. And I started to think about things. I started to think about things on the very basic level, about how much of this stuff is even in our control. And I came to the conclusion that none of this stuff is in our control. None of it. Our choices, where we end up geographically, who our friends are, our emotions day to day, none of it is in our control. And you can say, oh, of course it's in our control. I can go choose either a cheeseburger or a pizza to eat. Of course I have choice. It's not that simple, my friend. It's not that simple. You're only looking at the surface level. You're not looking underneath into your subconscious and thinking, well, how did I even arrive to the conclusion that I want a cheeseburger or a pizza? And just because I convince myself, seemingly, that I want a pizza instead of a cheeseburger, does that mean I really made that choice consciously, full on? Or was I going to make it anyway? Was it fated to happen? And I say it was fated to happen, even those things. And the more you delude yourself into thinking you have this free will to choose how your life goes, and listen, the food you eat, that's very inconsequential. But when you apply that reasoning that you are in charge of your own destiny and your own fate, and you start applying that reasoning to your whole life, you're eventually going to regret it, because you're going to stress yourself out. You're going to burn yourself out. You're probably going to die of a heart attack or worse. So you need to be realistic about this, because accepting your fate doesn't mean accepting defeat, accepting misery and death and all the negatives in life. It means accepting everything. It means accepting the good, the bad, the beautiful, the ugly. Because these things that move life come from beyond our comprehension. I suppose you could say God is putting everything in motion, but there is some sort of life energy that keeps us walking around. Nobody knows why a human being walks and talks and eats, and why does a human do all those things and a rock doesn't, and a rock just lays there, has no consciousness. What's so different about animals? Nobody knows. All your scientists, all your soyentists, like DBDR calls them, that guy's hilarious. I'm glad he's back. I saw he made a short today, because he's been gone for a while. People thought he deleted his channel for forever, but I hope he comes back. But the soyentists that think they have all the answers and act like their theories are facts because there's nobody that can completely can disprove them, is so foolish, so arrogant, and so delusional that it's mind-boggling to me. And the fact that we don't even know what animates life and what gives us life, and in the Bible it says God breathed life into us. it is like a breath of life that we have, that thing that keeps us even moving in day to day. And if we don't know what that even is, where it comes from, what makes you think you're in charge of your own fate? What makes you think fate isn't real? I mean, it's hard for me to explain this because I understand this on a very deep level that's very hard to put into words, just how deep fate goes and how it's not a surface level thing of resignation, but it's really part of that force of life that moves us. And when you're in alignment with that force, when you let it do its job, things become so easy and so simple and stress-free. It's actually amazing. This is the way we're meant to live. You know, it's no accident that most people, I would say, in the world accept that fate is real. And they don't try to run their lives like they're a CEO. We do that in America. And maybe it does contribute to financial gain. But energy is never created or destroyed, as that saying goes, and I think that is the fact. What happens is that energy that gets put towards this individualistic striving for wealth, it takes energy out of other aspects of your life, like peace, I think, and relaxation and contentment. And that's the only way you can, I think, you can change your fate, so to speak. So it's not set in stone, but the fate you're supposed to follow, I think, is set in stone. The fate that will guide you is set in stone. So, say there's a line down the middle. Say you're on a road, right? You're going down the road. You can veer off onto the shoulder. You can go off the road. You can veer off into the left lane if you want and get hit by a truck. But the road will stay constant no matter what you do. And that's the problem, is if you force fate, if you try to force fate, you will just get hit back like a rubber band snapping back. And that's why that saying exists, that fate leads the willing and drags along the reluctant. And that's really stuck in my mind for a long time. And I want to leave you guys with that. Think about that saying. If you already know that fate is real, or if you believe it's not, and I don't want to seem like I know this for sure, because nobody really knows anything when it comes to metaphysics. We're all just guessing. But meditate on this saying, as in keep it in your mind. I don't mean sit there like an Indian with your legs crossed in a quiet room, which you can do that if you want to as well, but I'm saying keep this in mind and think about it. Fate leads the willing and drags along the reluctant.